Hi, so this is a quick overview of Beezop. Beezop makes it easy for you to document, share, and track processes. So, very first thing we're going to start with is the document. So, how do you document processes in Beezop? Before we go into that, first thing to understand is how Beezop is structured. So you notice some things on the left panel here, home, tasks, activity, and then categories. We're going to be focusing first on categories. Categories are how processes are grouped in Beezop. So you can create a category for every team or department or job role that you have in your company. Within each category, you then have processes. Now, the different categories and processes that you're seeing here are mostly templates that we have preloaded into Beezop. So you can edit, customize these processes to fit your operations, or you can decide to archive them if you don't need them, right? While you create your own processes from scratch. Okay, so again, categories are how processes are grouped. So you can add people into a particular category to give them access to all of the processes in that category. Now, within any category, you then have the processes. So if we use, say, HR slash people management category, this is the hiring process, conducting reference checks. These are different processes within this category or team or department. Now, when you click on a process, Beezop then shows the steps involved in this process. Step one, step two, step three. And you notice that in this example, you have a step and you have the role responsible for the step and the expected time frame for that particular step. Please just ignore 5 minutes because this is just an example. So within each step, you can also add a description so that whoever is on this step has all the information they need to complete this particular step. And then they move on to the next step and then the next step. So this is one key difference between documenting processes in Beezop and using other documentation solutions, right? With Beezop, it's broken down step by step in a way that is easy for the person that's going through the process to understand. So it's not presented like a book or a manual. It's presented step by step. So it's easy to understand, easy to assimilate without it being overwhelming. Okay. So anyone looking at your processes can then look at them step by step. So this is an example of a documented process, but how do you create your own process? You can just go to whichever category you want to create the process in and then click on new process. Or if you are on the home page, you can come to add new process. Okay, so if I do this, first thing I choose is what category do I want this process to be? Say we want to add a new process under our people management category. What's the name of the process we're creating? Maybe we're calling this employee onboarding, a description just to give context to whoever is looking at this process. Let's say begin this process when a new team member joins the company. And the next thing is very straightforward, the steps involved in the process. So what's step one? What's step two? What's step three? And you can add as many more steps as you want. Okay, so we're going to just do a very simple example. So let's say the very first step is send a welcome email. And then we can say You can just put an example here, maybe what you need to put in the email, or you can attach a file from your computer to this particular step. So I'm just going to add something simple and say, hey, welcome to the team. So you're saying that when someone new joins our team, the first thing we need to do is send them an email, and this is what the email should contain. Now, this is just a very simple example. Now, the next thing is add to work platforms. So we can then maybe list out the platforms, maybe say Slack, Beezop, say Google Suite. Let's say next thing is assign a work body. This is the person that will help them understand how things work. Okay, let's say one more step is add, say send welcome kit. All right, and let's just remove this step. Okay, so we have 4 steps in this particular process. And once we're done, we can either save it as draft if we will come back to complete the process, or we can publish. Now, once you hit publish, you have the option to notify your team. And when you click on this, it automatically sends an email notification to everyone on the HR and people management team that a new process called employee onboarding has been created. So everyone on the team is now on the same page that a new process has been created, and in one click they can see what that new process is. So I'm going to uncheck this and hit publish. Okay, so this is the process that we've just created. Step 1 is do this. Step 2, step 3, step 4. So if we come back to HR, it would most likely be at the end, which is this. These are some other processes that we've added before. I can decide to sort of drag this to the top if I want. I can also decide that this is a process that I'm going to be using often. I can decide to pin it to home. So what happens is that if I go to home, I now have the process here, so I can easily access it. So that's how to document a process in Beezop. And any process that you've documented, you can easily edit. And then, of course, you can add more information to it. You can decide to attach a file to this particular document. I can choose the role in the company that is responsible for this step. I can even set timelines for this particular step, but that's something that we can look at later. Okay, and when I want to publish again, I can click to notify my team, and this time it tells them that the employee onboarding process has been updated. So everyone in this team knows that we've made some changes to our employee onboarding process. Okay, and I hit publish. So I'm just going to cancel this. Okay, so that's the documentation side of Beezop. Remember, Beezop helps you document, share, and track processes. Now, how do you share processes? Very simple. You come to my team, manage team. So with Beezop, you can add people to the Beezop account, and you can choose which categories you want them to have access to. Okay, so in this demo account, we already have about 4 users, and now we can add one more. So all we do is add the name of the person, their email, job title, and account type. Now, there are 3 account types: member, admin, and account owner. The member is usually a regular team member. They can view processes, You can have tasks assigned to them, and I'll explain what tasks are, but they can't create processes or edit existing processes. If you want people to be able to, if you want a person to be able to create a process or update a process or even invite other people into the Beezop account, you make them an admin. The account owner is the one that can do every single thing on the account. So they're in charge of billing, they can export processes out of the account, and they can do everything that an admin can do. Okay. And of course, you then want to choose which categories do you want this person that you're adding to access. All right. And once you do that, they're automatically granted access to those categories. They will receive an email. All they need to do is set their password and they'll be granted access to the Beezop account. So that's how you share processes. Now, another way of sharing processes is something that we call public sharing. Okay, so if we have a category that we want to share publicly, maybe we want customers or partners to have access to these processes without the need to log in into our Beezop account, we can create a public link. So if I want to share maybe the sales process, I can create what's called a public link. I'm going to do this and choose which processes I want this link to contain. So I'm going to select all and share. Okay. So it generates a link. I can copy this link and I'm just going to open an incognito tab so you see what it's like with for someone that's not logged into Beezop. So this is what they see. Okay, this account is I'm logged into this account, so I'm going to just sign out, then do this again. All right, so this is what they see. You notice they can't add a process, they can't edit a process, they can just see the processes in the category that you shared, and they can click on any process and see the steps involved in that process. Step one, step two, step three, without having to log into your account. Okay, so this is very helpful when you want to share processes with people that are not team members or they are not employees in a business. Okay, this is public sharing. So I'm going to go back to this. Now I'm already logged out, so I'm going to log in again. So that's another way of sharing processes apart from adding people directly into your Beezop account. And then people can easily find processes. So if I'm looking for our onboarding process, I can easily find any process that has to do with onboarding, employee onboarding, customer onboarding, website client onboarding. I click on it and it takes me straight to that particular process. I can view it in step view, I can view it in list view to see all of the processes, all of the steps involved. So this is the second part of Beezop. Remember, Beezop helps you document, share, and track processes. We've covered documenting processes. We've covered sharing processes. Now we want to look at how do you track processes. Now, the very first thing is why would you want to track processes? And the truth is you don't always have to track processes. Sometimes it's good enough to just document a process, share it with your team members, and they have a reference point to see all of the processes that have been documented. This helps with training, makes it a lot faster to train new members of your team. It reduces the need to keep repeating yourself as a go-to person or as a manager. All you do is just give them access to Beezop and they can see how any process works in the company. It also helps ensure that there's consistency in the way things are done. So people are not doing things differently because they don't know how things should be done. You have all of your processes in one place and it just makes work consistent, right? That's for some companies, that's enough. But then there might be some processes where you need compliance. You need people to follow the same process every single time. And in that case, you want to track it. Okay. Now, tracking is helpful for the person that is doing the process so that they can just track the processes that they are working on. Tracking is also helpful for managers to see where things are on the things that people are doing. So if we use the process that we created earlier, the employee onboarding process. So if for example, we have 5 different people that we are currently onboarding, and we want to follow this process for every single person. How do we keep track of where we are, what step of the process we are at for every single person that we are currently onboarding? And that's where tasks come in. So I'm just going to run through the example. I can say, hey, we're currently doing onboarding for someone called John. Okay, I create a task. I can also say, I can come here and say, go to main process. I can also say we're currently doing onboarding for someone called Jane. Create the task. I can finally come back here and say we're doing onboarding for someone called Elizabeth, and I create the task. Now, remember the left panel here where we have home, tasks, and activity, which I'll come to. Under tasks, we can now see the different processes that we are running. Okay, these are different processes that we created earlier, but these are the 3 recent processes that we just created, or the 3 different tasks that we just created. Elizabeth, Jane, and John. Now, for John, what you'll notice is, for tasks generally, actually, what you notice is each step of the process that we defined earlier is now converted into a checklist, right? Or a sort of subtask that needs to be done. So the main task is John's employee onboarding. But what's the very first thing that we need to do? We need to send a welcome email, right? So I can copy this message, send out the email, and check this off that I have done this. Then Beezop presents the next thing that needs to be done. Okay, I need to add this person to the work platforms. I can do all of this and check it off that I have done it. I need to assign a work body to John. I do this as well. If, for instance, I need to ask someone a question or I need to add a comment to this particular step, I can click on this, add a comment and say, hey, right, who's the body? Okay, and of course, Dwight gets a notification and he can respond and all of that. Okay, and then I can check this off. It moves to the next step. And I'm just going to leave this here. So I can see now that for John's employee onboarding, we're currently 75% done. Okay, we've completed 3 out of the 4 steps of the process. I can see that for Jane, we've not started the process. For Elizabeth, we've not started the process. Okay, so I click on this, I check this off. So we're now 25% done. I come back here, I see that for Jane, we're 25% done. So for as a manager, this gives you visibility into the different processes that are running. As the person that is doing the task, you can see all the different tasks that you are currently working on and where you are in the process. Now, Beezop also helps with some reminders. Every weekday, you get a digest email that contains all of your current steps in the different processes that you are working on or the processes that have been assigned to you. Okay, so this is how you track processes or you track. So remember, Beezop helps you document, share, and track processes. So this is the portion of Beezop that helps you track. Okay, and you can decide that you only want to see the specific things that you are supposed to do, not necessarily the status. So you can switch to to-do view, which shows you the things that you're supposed to do next for the different tasks that have been assigned to you. Okay, just a couple of other things to know about Beezop is, of course, you can track activity. These are the different things that have happened in the Beezop account. So it's a sort of log that shows the things that people have been doing. So I can say I only want to see activities relating to processes. So this will show me, hey, this process was created. Remember when we created this process? This one was updated. Maybe another process was maybe even archived, right? So you can see everything that has been done. And this is helpful, say someone goes on leave for 2 weeks or a month and comes back and they can easily see all the updates that have been made to processes. Okay, you can, like I shared how you can search for processes. There are a number of other things you can do. You can remember when I said for any process, you can easily choose who is responsible for a step in a process, and you can choose timelines. But regarding the role, you can also manage all of those roles here. So these are the different roles we have in our company, and these are the different people that can play that role. Okay, and I'll show you now how roles come to play. So if I come back to our employee onboarding process, I can edit this and say this step of the process is handled by this role. Okay, so this is handled by our CEO. And just to make things a bit more interesting, I can give a timeline to say this is expected to be done within five, let's just make it more realistic, say within 1 day. Okay, we can say this next step is handled by the COO, just done in 1 day. But let's just make this say 2 hours after the first step. And I'm just going to leave this here and just publish. So you can now see both the role and the timeline for each step. And then if you decide to add roles and timelines to steps, and then it means when you're creating a task, you can choose roles. So I can say we're currently onboarding Monica. Who is the CEO? Who is the COO, right? If we have just one person, it automatically chooses that one person. If we have multiple people that play that role, we can also choose which person is doing it for this particular task. Okay, I create the task. Now, you notice something interesting. This particular step of the process now has a due date because we set the timeline, right? So it's due in 23 hours. Another thing you'll find interesting now that we set both the timeline and the role is if I switch to list view, this one was assigned to Michael, this one was assigned to Dwight, right? Because Dwight is our COO and the COO is responsible for this step of the process. So this is where workflow automation now comes in. If I complete this step, it becomes Dwight's own step to complete. So I've done step one. Dwight is going to automatically get an email to let him know that he is to add this person, Monica, to the work platforms, right? And you can automate things like that. So Beezop is going to pass the tasks along from person to person until you're completely done with that process based on their roles in the process. Okay. So in this example, we have one person who is the CEO handling this step, and we have another person who is the COO handling this step. We didn't choose the roles for these other steps, so it automatically assigns them to the person that is in charge of the task, whoever created the task. Okay, so this is a pretty general overview of Beezop. Remember, Beezop helps you document any process, share any process, and track any process, whether it's your HR processes, sales processes, marketing processes, any process whatsoever, right? And you can either use the templates that come with Beezop or you can create your own processes from scratch. Okay, hope you found this easy to understand. If you have questions, please reach out to us. Thank you very much.